This is Dan Dix here, reporting for Press for Truth, and we got a great show lined up for you today, my friends, so let's just jump right into it. Joining me on the line right now is James Topp. He is a 28-year veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces who is currently, right now, walking across the country. He's going all the way from Vancouver all the way to Ottawa in protest of the government's draconian measures, mandates, and restrictions. So James, thank you so much for taking the time here while you're on the road to speak with us here at Press for Truth. Now, I want to get your views on, first of all, what your experience has been like on the road so far. I think you're on day 47, and what you anticipate in the coming weeks. But before we get into that, maybe you could start us off with a little bit of your background and how you got to this point where you've decided to literally walk across the country in protest.
Yeah, no problem, Dan. I've just the experience so far has been pretty amazing. When I announced my intention to do this thing, I was pretty well received, like almost immediately. Not so much by more corporate entities, but just by regular folks who I think have identified with what the truckers movement did, or the truckers convoy and the freedom movement did. And since day one, this has been a really a good story of people coming together in support of a good cause. So,
well, I think a lot of people are agreeing that there has been some heavy overreach from the government in terms of the restrictions that they've been laying down here. So maybe you could get into a little bit of that. How did that start affecting your life to the point where you're taking this on?
Well, I'm a federal government worker. So I was, just to back it up a little bit, I spent 28 years in the armed forces. In 2019, I transferred from the regular Army to the Reserve Army so I could pursue a career with the public service. And I was working as a civilian with the RCMP in Chilliwack, British Columbia. And I was a facility manager there. When they announced the imposition of mandates in August, it was, watch out for that hole. It wasn't so much as, I have an issue with heavy-handedness that the federal government was demonstrating. And just because I wear a uniform doesn't mean I don't have the right to ask questions or voice my concerns. So I had issues with that. And what ended up happening was come November, I was placed on leave without pay. And I was also informed by the military that I would be released on item 5F. And an item 5F is, if you look in the regs, it says it's inability or unwillingness to change a behavior. And the behavior that I was unwilling to change was my non-compliance with the Chief of Defense Staff Directive on vaccination.
So it sounds like you're really sticking your neck out here. Is it like, can they court-martial you? Is it potential they're still after you for doing this?
Absolutely. Well, what happened was, if I'm not sure if your viewers are aware, was that I became so discontent. I announced my intention to do this march in full uniform at a rally in Sumas in Surrey back in February the 12th. So in doing so, I violated the code of service discipline with regards to being a member of the armed forces and the existing social media for that, because I still am serving until such time as I am released. And then the release process for my non-compliance with the Chief of Defense Staff Directive is still ongoing. So with regards to other service members like me, okay, move over. We are facing an administrative process that's releasing us. The military does have the option to charge us under military law for not receiving or disclosing our vaccination status However, they're choosing to place us on leave without pay and administratively releasing us with this item 5F. So there is a bit of concern there, but I feel what's happening with regards to this current government is more important that somebody stands up and does something.
Well, big time. I mean, as a former veteran of the Canadian Armed Forces of 28 years, how does someone in your position feel about the fact that unvaccinated Canadians can literally not hop on an airplane or a train or a boat to leave the country right now? It's almost like we're prisoners in our own nation. You fought for the very rights of this nation to be free. How does it feel to you to hear what Trudeau's doing?
Well, I obviously feel very strongly about it. And just one sec, I got to check on these folks.
Mm-hmm.
How you guys doing? Okay. I get this is the kind of support we get even in these rural areas. Folks want to participate. And but to go back to what you were saying, absolutely, I feel strongly that we have a set of freedoms as enshrined in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and they're being trampled on and ignored. And you know what I hear a lot too, Dan, is folks in this situation, they're bereft of hope because there's nobody in this government who expresses any type of concern about people in our position. You know, we've lost jobs, families are divided, and that's one of the things I'm doing on this mission. I'm there to speak on their behalf,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm there to speak on the behalf of all those guys that I know in uniform who just got this procedure because they were threatened with the loss of income.
Well, you know, it literally got to the point where hundreds of truckers had to form a convoy to go all the way to the nation's capital and Parliament Hill to say, hey, look, everybody, we have a serious problem with this. And that really sparked a movement, really, which has been triggered all around the world. So let's talk about your convoy. I mean, you recently left from Vancouver. You're on your way to Ottawa. You're in Medicine Hat, Alberta, roughly. I know there is a live tracker. You seem to have a bit of a crew with you. What can you tell us about the trip so far?
Yeah, well, I'll start with the truckers convoy is what inspired me to do this. I had after being placed on leave without pay, I needed income. I do get a pension from my armed forces time, but I needed to supplement it, right? So I cast about for a job. I ended up getting a job as a tow truck driver in Hope, British Columbia, where I live. And I started to see how hard the Canadian public works. And I came to the realization that it's the Canadian public that pays for the federal government. And it wasn't exactly a realization. It had always been kind of unconscious knowledge, so to speak. But, you know, having seen it face to face, I started to be, not only inspired by what the truckers were doing, but also I had a sense of outrage in that they were ignored and vilified. So that pretty much right off the bat, got a lot of encouragement online, got contacted. It was kind of challenging for folks to get a hold of me because I don't really have a social media presence on my own. This just started when I decided to take on this mission. And, the Christian, I met him on February 20th. He's holding the camera. Gavin, we met in Princeton, BC, not that long after. Dan Jones, he's the one holding the flag, and he has been doing so for pretty consistently over the last 6 weeks. We all met in Vancouver by the Terry Fox Memorial, and we've been together ever since. We got a good little crew going on here. There's 9 of us. Tyler, Dallas are also they're driving the safety vehicles and doing administration duties. Esther drove up from Austin, Texas. She's a Canadian citizen who had been living down there and was also felt strongly about what was happening in her home country. So Jeremy Cormier, I met him. He's one of the first people to contact me. And we've been working together. And I got Logan Murphy. He is our action photographer who was taking a lot of pictures in Calgary and Coots. And, it's just the way this team has come together has been really remarkable, and stuck through it, like, even though I know it's been challenging for all of us at times.
Well, it must have been. I think it's very appropriate that you left from the Terry Fox Memorial. Obviously, he famously did this walk as a fight for people's rights and to bring some awareness to a major issue. So it's appropriate you're doing the same. And the route is all the way to Ottawa. When do you foresee yourself eventually getting to Ottawa? It's a pretty interesting time of year for you to leave. I mean, it's not like it's middle of summer or anything. I think you may still encounter some weather issues. I'm sure it's going to be a wild trek for the rest of the way. But when do you expect to arrive in Ottawa, and what do you expect to happen once you get there?
Right. So that was a question I had to ask myself after a number of people had asked me, and I have to say a lot of this was kind of done by instinct. So, a lot of these answers weren't formulated until we were well into it, and I came to come up with a strategy, and that I want to get to Ottawa by the mid to end of June. Mm-hmm. And what we've done is we've sent an email and printed letter signed by myself to every member of Parliament in the House of Commons, requesting a meeting. And the meeting is going to have agenda items yet to be disclosed, but what we're working on is addressing the damage that's been done by these mandates. And so we have extended that invitation to these members of Parliament, and this is the plan, this is the strategy. What's it going to look like for those members of Parliament choosing to ignore this action? I think the optics would be bad for them, to say the least, especially after we've marched for 4,300 kilometers. Mm-hmm. And felt so strongly about an issue. So we'll see. That is the plan right now. I know a lot of folks have got it in their heads that the government is just this entity that won't listen or doesn't care, and in a way they're right. And I think we need to remind them of who they work for by doing stuff like this. So this is entirely peaceful, constructive, and everybody can participate in this by contacting their member of Parliament. Now, I know that it seems that on the face of it, there's a lot of disenfranchisement with the general public. And I think they need to snap out of it, because they need to realize that the federal government works for them, not the other way around.
Well, I got to say, I love the fact that you just dove in head first, not necessarily with an end game plan agenda. And that just goes to show that your heart is in the right place, and your passion speaks for itself. Now, I would hope that on this journey, people start to pick up on the story, and they start to plan to make arrangements to meet you there and to give you a huge welcoming in Ottawa in mid-June. Do you think that's likely? And what would you hope to see in mid-June when you arrive?
Well, I think it's very likely, because, like I said, I've already got folks who have expressed interest in what I'm doing, and watch out. In dribs and drabs, the word does get out there. I didn't expect a lot to happen before we got 1,000 kilometers on our clock, but now we got 1,200. And as we get to, as we get on Highway 1 shortly, going east, folks are passing us every day in their vehicles. And a lot of them don't know what I'm doing or what we're doing. Mm-hmm. But some of them actually pull over to find out, and they either care or they don't. But I mean, this is just the way the word will get out one way or another. And I have been hearing a lot from veterans organizations expressing their interests in meeting me in Ottawa, because the other part of this is me going to the War Memorial and paying my respects at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, because that's a legacy And earlier this year, there was some trauma inflicted on the veteran community at that monument, and I need to go and repair that. So I anticipate there will be a number of veterans there. And again, this is part and parcel of the strategy. And that is one thing, to sit there and vilify folks, but we're going to we're going to build on what the truckers had already done. And I don't think it's going to be as easy to ignore us.
No, I agree. They're going to have a bit of a PR issue there. They're not going to be able to ignore you. They're not going to certainly be able to clamp down on you like they did the truckers. I don't know if you caught my my coverage of the clampdown where I took a baton to the ribs, and I mean they proved to be the ones who were the violent ones in the whole thing, and I showed how the truckers were the peaceful ones. They're not going to be able to do that with you because you're taking a different approach, and you are clearly very, very peaceful. And you got to be in shape for something like this. I mean, walking across the country, are you going to be able to pull it off physically?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, this is what I did. This is what we used to call the bread and butter. I did this for 28 years.
Right.
And I'll go to Newfoundland if I have to.
That's awesome. Well, you're the perfect guy to do this and to raise awareness about this very serious cause. I really, really hope people are going to not only join you in Ottawa on the mid-June whenever you arrive, but also all along the journey. Now I want to shout out your social media links, and we'll put the websites in the description, and so everybody can follow you and all that. But before we do, as just in closing here, I don't want to keep up too much of your time while you're on the road. If you have any final thoughts for Canadians who may just be watching this now, learning about this now for the first time, and who are thinking to themselves, yeah, you know what, something is wrong. This guy makes a good point. I feel like I should be doing something as well. Any words of advice to anybody out there who's kind of on the fence?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that opportunity, because this is also an educational journey, not just for myself, but for everybody. I mean, there's been a couple of times when I've asked myself, what am I going to do when I get to Ottawa? Well, I started to educate myself on the democratic process and exactly how our democracy functions. And, it was kind of an eye-opening experience. And there's a lot of folks that don't realize how our government works and what we can do to affect change. And it doesn't take much to figure that stuff out. You don't have to be any kind of an expert. You just have to know how to read, or punch up some basic information in Google search, and you'll figure it out. And in doing so, you're gonna empower yourself with knowledge, and you're gonna overcome this kind of mental roadblock in the way of thinking that the government is just this entity that exists and is not reachable, and you can reach it. And as a matter of fact, it doesn't take much, because you can go on the CanadaMarches.ca website, look at the letter that I wrote to members of Parliament, adapt it to your own personal needs, and send it yourself. Now, I will say that I have heard from 2 senators who have declined at present, and I've heard from 1 member of Parliament who has tentatively placed it on his calendar, and another member, which is fine, because there's also letters getting mailed as well, and they have the opportunity to change, because I think it's like I said, the optics for them in ignoring this particular aspect, that particular aspect of what I'm doing is not going to be a good look for them.
Yeah, for sure. And I would agree with you that it doesn't necessarily take much. I would liken the entire system to a pyramidal structure of control. And in a system like that, yes, they are at the top of this thing, but what makes up the power? What makes up it's the base. It's all of us who make up the base and the power of this thing. And if just one little tiny brick from the bottom corner removes itself, the whole thing can potentially start coming to crumpling down. So you could very literally represent one of those bricks in the bottom of the pyramid who could start the beginning of this collapse, because really it's like unlike a pyramid, it's more like a fragile house of cards that really could come crumbling down at any time. And all we need is for some people like you, some cards on the bottom corner, to remove themselves and say, hey, no, something's not right. We need to make a change. So I want to thank you for taking that initiative. I mean, this is just huge. This is epic. This should be going viral. This should be getting all sorts of coverage from the news. I want to encourage everybody who's watching this, share this video, share this stream, continue to support James as he's on the road. What's some of the best places they can go, James, to continue to document your journey? What are the websites and the social media links if you want to shout them
out? Canada Marches, one word.ca is the best place to find us. From there, you can get to all the links on all the different social media platforms, including the larger ones, and Liberty and Rumble, I do believe. So we all include the links to our website. That would be most helpful. And if you want to get in contact with us, I also want to shout out to all the folks who are online helping CanadaMarches.ca kind of grow. And that's what I would say to that.
Fantastic. I'm going to strongly encourage everybody to check that out. Show your support. These are the guys who are getting things done. You got their different levels of activism and freedom fighters. You got your keyboard warriors online, and that's great. That has its place too. But this is next level activism, and this is exactly what we need. So I want to encourage everybody to check all those links in the description. James, I'm going to continue to follow your GPS tracker, continue to support your efforts as you're on the road. And I can't wait till you make it to Ottawa, and hopefully maybe I'll get a chance to see you there in June.
Thank you. Yeah, it'll be good to see you too, Dan.
Yeah, I'm gonna plan to try to make that trip a reality. To be there, to welcome you on the front lines. I think that'd be fantastic. I think some of my viewers who are Canadians should start making plans to do the same thing. So once again, man, just keep up the fantastic work. I look forward to meeting you someday, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Okay, thanks a lot, Dan. Good to talk to you.
You too. Take care.
We all want truth. The truth will set you free.